Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're looking at something truly heartbreaking that unfolded in Central Texas back on July 5th, 2025. We're talking about those catastrophic flash floods and specifically the really profound tragedy that hit Camp Mystic. Our goal here, with this deep dive is to help you get a handle on not just the scale of it all, the sheer size of the disaster, but also the personal stories of loss, yes, but also incredible heroism. And we want to explore the bigger picture too, the context and what this might mean going forward. We've gathered insights from, a bunch of sources, major outlets like FOX News, plus really vital local reports to give you a full view without getting lost in the details. It's tough stuff, definitely. We're here to sort of distill what really matters. Okay, so July 5th, 2025, Central Texas, especially that beautiful hill country area, gets slammed by these flash floods. The power of the water was just staggering, and the numbers when they first started coming out were incredibly sobering. And, changing rapidly too. It recorded at least 82 deaths across the region.
Something severe.
Carl Jeter describes the miracle he won't soon forget. Around 8 a.m. Friday, he heard the frantic cries of a young woman, then saw her naked, clinging to a tree, narrowly escaping the relentless, fast-moving floodwaters just inches below.
Hey, I see you. We're going to get you. Hang on. We're going to get you out of that tree. It's going to be all right, but you need to hang on.
Carl says he yelled back, letting her know he had seen her and that he was calling 911. He waited 20 minutes, then decided it best to drive into town and alert first responders in person.
I wasn't sure she was hearing what I was saying for sure.
Emergency crews showed up with 2 boats and in short order safely lowered the woman from the tree. Turns out she had been clinging to that tree for hours.
It was just a feeling of hope that, she's going to be all right, and she just wanted to hug me. That's all she wanted to do was give me a big hug. So we embraced for a bit, and my wife had gotten towels and blankets, and we got a trash bag and put over to try to warm her up because, she had lost a lot of body temperature at that point, and she's nicked up and banged up and what have you.
Carl says he welcomed her into his home, providing food, a warm shower, and clothes.
She's in shock at that point, obviously, and she kept just apologizing profusely. I've made a mess in your bathroom. Can you, is there a broom or something I can use to help clean up? And we're like, no, honey, don't worry about what's going on. We're just thrilled that you're here,
The woman shared she's from Midland and was in the area with 5 of her family members. They noticed the water rising and tried driving to higher ground, but the water just kept on rising, sweeping her and her father downstream. One by one, she lost sight of her parents as she was swept at least 20 miles from the Hunt Ingram area, finally resting on the tree in Center Point.
We talked and embraced and talked about the fact that it was truly a miracle. She acknowledged that, I guess the Lord has a better plan for me.
And tragically, that included 28 children. That was as of July 7th. Now, if you were following other news feeds, you might have seen slightly different figures. Like FOX News, just the day before, July 6th, they noted nearly 70 deaths. 59 of those confirmed, 38 adults, 21 children. This kind of difference, right after something like this happens, it's not really that unusual. It actually shows the intense pressure responders are under. They're focused on rescue first, not perfect counts immediately.
Exactly. When a disaster hits this fast and covers such a wide area, the numbers are bound to fluctuate. The absolute priority is saving lives, not, precise accounting right that second. What's sort of fascinating in a grim way is watching how this real-time data, even if imperfect, shapes everything public understanding, where aid goes. Things we don't often think about in the moment. And it wasn't just one county. We saw deaths reported all over. Kerr County was hit incredibly hard. NBC reported 68 total, 28 children there. But also Travis County reported 4, Burnett 3, Kendall 1, It just paints a picture of how widespread this was and how tough it is to get a clear picture when things are still unfolding.
Yeah, and woven into that larger regional picture is the story of one particular place, a place that sadly became a focal point of this tragedy, Camp Mystic. This is a private, all-girls Christian summer camp. It's really on the Guadalupe River in Hunt, Texas. For generations, really, it's been this idyllic spot, a place of community for young women. When the floodwaters hit, there were 750 campers there, just starting their summer. And the losses at Camp Mystic were just immense. CNN's report as of July 7th confirmed 27 campers and counselors dead, with another 10 campers and 1 counselor still missing at that point. FOX News the day before had slightly different numbers, over a dozen confirmed dead, 11 campers, and 1 counselor unaccounted for. These aren't just numbers, obviously. Each one is a life, a family devastated, and amidst all the chaos and these raw numbers, there are these individual stories that just stand out, stories that show the deep human cost. One story that really resonated was that of Dick Eastland. He'd been the camp's director and co-owner since, 1974. He tragically died trying to save campers. His grandson, George Eastland, shared this incredibly moving post on Instagram. He said if he wasn't going to die of natural causes, this was the only other way saving the girls that he so loved and cared for. That just speaks volumes, doesn't it? And others echoed that. A former camper, Paige Sumner, called him a father figure to all of us. Counselor Kathleen Somerville described him as one of the most selfless men in the whole world. It sounds like his last actions were truly who he was.
It really is a profound testament to his character. And that kind of selflessness, that instinct to protect, was up against something almost unimaginable. The speed and the sheer force of this flood, especially right there at Camp Mystic, the Guadalupe River. It rose more than 20 feet. 20 feet. In less than 2 hours. Can you even picture that? It wasn't a slow creep. Reports called it a deadly flood wave. That kind of speed, that kind of volume of water, it leaves almost zero time for any kind of orderly evacuation. It was just instant, overwhelming power. And that, unfortunately, is a huge factor in why the casualties were so tragically high, despite people like Dick Eastland doing everything they could.
It's hard to grasp, that speed. And yeah, what a legacy for Dick Eastland. That kind of courage, in the face of nature's absolute worst. And his story, while so prominent, wasn't the only example of bravery. There were incredible acts of resilience right across the board during the chaos. The U.S. Coast Guard, for instance, they were absolutely vital. One rescue swimmer, Scott Reskin, he personally saved 165 people, and the Coast Guard overall, over 230 rescues conducted. Just amazing work. And back at Camp Mystic itself, the counselors, unbelievable bravery. Like Emma Foltz, she managed to evacuate 14 campers. Her actions were even recognized by Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry. We heard from a teen survivor, too, who described just how terrifying it was as the water surged, but specifically praised the counselors, how they acted heroically. Kerrville City Manager Dalton Rice also mentioned hundreds rescued from campsites all along the Guadalupe. And remember, this was all happening during a busy 4th of July weekend, which just complicated everything. Oh, and FOX News had that incredible story too, didn't they? About a family rescuing a woman swept like 20 miles downriver, found clinging to a tree. These aren't just stories, they show incredible human spirit.
Absolutely. These individual acts, this courage, it really underscores our capacity for selflessness and quick thinking under the absolute worst pressure. And, what's often missed is how this individual heroism kind of fills the gaps. Sometimes formal warning systems aren't enough, or the event is just too fast for any official response to keep up. These stories, they become these points of light. Even in the middle of such darkness, they highlight that strength people find when pushed to the very edge. It makes you think about that interaction, doesn't it, between organized disaster plans and just raw human instinct to save someone.
So, stepping back from the immediate crisis, the rescues, the heroism, what does this event tell us? What are the broader lessons, the risks that maybe still linger?
Well, first off, the flood threat wasn't over right away. The National Weather Service actually extended a flood watch through Monday, July 7th. That covered nearly 5 million people. And they were forecasting potentially another 2 to 4 inches of rain, maybe even up to 10 inches in isolated spots. So still dangerous. And this ongoing risk, it's partly because this area of Texas is known as Flash Flood Alley. It's not just a name, it's a real geological and meteorological phenomenon. You've got humid air coming off the Gulf bumping into the landscape like the Balcones Escarpment. That forces the air up, creates intense thunderstorms, and the rain comes down hard and fast into rivers that can rise incredibly quickly. It's a known danger zone.
That's a key point. Flash Flood Alley has always been prone to this, but events like the 2025 floods really drive home how climate change is changing the game. It's not just about more extreme weather, it's about the intensity. A warmer atmosphere literally holds more moisture, so when it rains, it can rain much, much harder. We get these supersized downpours that just overwhelm everything defenses built for past conditions. Familiar riverbanks pointed out this wasn't the only major flood in Texas in 2025. It suggests a pattern, more frequent, more intense events. And it's not just the weather science. There are critical human factors too. Questions about preparedness. Some reports are suggesting things like critical staff shortages at forecast offices, and also this phenomenon called warning fatigue. People get so many alerts, maybe for less severe things, that they start to tune them out, even when the danger is real. It just shows how complex disaster preparedness is. You can have the best warnings, but how they're delivered, how they're received, that matters hugely.
Yeah, that warning fatigue is a tricky one. And in the aftermath, after the immediate danger, the focus shifts to the human side again, grief, support, trying to recover. And we saw a huge outpouring of community support for the families affected, just people rallying around each other. Texas Governor Greg Abbott was down at Camp Mystic on July 5th, right away, assessing the damage, supporting the rescue efforts. That high-level attention matters. And the tributes poured in, from community members, former campers, remembering Dick Eastland, honoring all the victims. It really highlighted how much Camp Mystic meant, how it was this cherished institution. And importantly, for anyone wanting to help, CNN and others shared resources, ways to donate to relief efforts, which is always so crucial.
Absolutely. And what really stands out in these moments is that raw emotional toll. You hear these stories, families finding each other at reunification centers like Ingram Elementary, just immense relief, and then heartbreakingly, other families still waiting, hoping for news about missing loved ones. That anguish is unimaginable. These stories of sacrifice, of survival, of resilience, they define the aftermath. They show both the terrible loss and the incredible strength that emerges when communities face something like this together.
So this deep dive into the Texas floods, into the Camp Mystic tragedy, it really brings into sharp focus the power of nature, doesn't it? But also that extraordinary heroism we saw and the huge challenges that community is still facing. The rescue efforts were incredible, tireless. But the grief and that lingering threat of more rain, it just underscores how deep the impact was and how long recovery takes. It leaves us with a lot to think about, really, considering that this area is flash flood alley and we know severe weather is getting more intense with climate change. How do communities strike that balance between preserving places people cherish, like Camp Mystic, that happen to be in high-risk areas, and facing up to these new climate realities, investing in better warning systems, maybe rethinking where we build? What's the shared responsibility here between individuals, authorities, all of us in adapting to this changing, sometimes frighteningly unpredictable environment? Something definitely worth considering.
It was something far more sinister than anyone could have predicted. The storm that brewed over the Texas Hill Country wasn't just a rainmaker. It was a water bomb, unleashing an unprecedented deluge that transformed placid rivers into raging torrents. Reports indicate that some areas saw rainfall totals exceeding 10 inches in a matter of hours, a volume so immense it overwhelmed even the most robust flood mitigation systems. The ground, already saturated from previous, less severe rain events, had no capacity to absorb this sudden downpour, turning hillsides into conduits for devastating flash floods. The Guadalupe River, a beloved artery of recreation and serenity, became a churning death trap. In a terrifying span of just 45 minutes, the river in some critical locations reportedly rose an astonishing 25 feet. Imagine that, a wall of water moving with unimaginable force, tearing through everything in its path. This wasn't a gradual rise. It was an explosive surge that caught countless residents, campers, and vacationers entirely by surprise. The sheer speed of the water's ascent left little to no time for warnings to propagate effectively, or for people to evacuate safely. Many accounts describe waking up to water already rushing into their homes, or finding themselves suddenly engulfed while trying to seek higher ground. This rapid onset of the floodwaters is a hallmark of flash floods and the flash flood alley. That is the Texas Hill Country. The consequences can be uniquely catastrophic due to its steep slopes and thin soil that hinder water absorption. Where are our girls? The unspeakable loss at Camp Mystic. The heart-wrenching focal point of this growing crisis revolves around Camp Mystic, a long-standing Christian summer camp for girls nestled along the banks of the Guadalupe River in Kerr County. What should have been a haven of summer fun, laughter, and spiritual growth has become a site of unimaginable grief. Of the staggering 63 confirmed fatalities in the Texas floods, a horrifying 15 are children. And the numbers continue to climb, but the most agonizing statistic remains. 27 girls are still missing from Camp Mystic. This isn't just a number. These are daughters, sisters, friends, whose families are now living through every parent's worst nightmare. The camp, which has been a cherished institution for generations, was reportedly devastated by the sudden surge of water. Eyewitness accounts, few and fragmented due to the chaos, speak of the terrifying speed with which the river consumed the camp's facilities. Structures were swept away, tents vanished, and the organized routine of camp life was instantly replaced by a desperate struggle for survival. The emotional toll on first responders and rescue workers is immense as they meticulously comb through debris, clinging to the fading hope of finding survivors amidst the wreckage of what was once a vibrant summer sanctuary. The search for these missing girls has become a desperate race against time, a testament to the community's unwavering hope in the face of overwhelming despair. Unidentified victims. The grim task of identification. As rescue and recovery efforts continue around the clock, another somber reality has emerged. Of the bodies recovered so far, 18 adults and 5 children remain unidentified. This speaks volumes about the ferocity of the floodwaters, which not only claimed lives but also disfigured victims to the extent that immediate identification is impossible. For families desperately searching for loved ones, this adds another layer of agonizing uncertainty. Are there missing family members among the unidentified, or are they still out there, somewhere clinging to life? The process of identification involves painstaking work, often relying on dental records, DNA, or unique personal effects. This grim task is a stark reminder of the flood's indiscriminate power and the profound void it leaves in countless lives.
that is the workout arena that's trashed.
Oh, wow. They just put that. I saw some blue stuff in there too. That's normal.
Well, the storm debris that's on the inside of the
The water's rising. Look at that, it is over there. I can see the bridge.
I don't know if you want to be in. Here you go. Oh, hey, back.
ruined, I'm sure, but we're going to get the mud out and where we are. Out this way over here. Got mud all the way up to the ceiling in there. And that's a lower floor. You step down there.
Oh man, we're gonna be on the county.
That one. Yeah, grab a hold of it up to the side of it. You don't want to get in.
TFB.
TFB 61. Or something better than this. Well, I mean, you gotta direct it like a.
Brief update on the current status of operations since the last time we spoke. Speaking order is going to be.
Okay, once again, Larry Leith, the Kirk County Sheriff. Before I get in my notes, I want to address a couple of things. Obviously, there's been some alerts going on the phone. We have checked one. We're in the process of checking the other one. What we know on the flood warning on 1340, FM 1340, that is inaccurate. There is no water coming down 1340. We have confirmed that. On Johnson Creek, there is a rise there. That rise could put 1 to 2 feet into the Guadalupe River. We will be staying on top of that. Search and rescue operations continue with a full response from local, state, and national first responders. We continue to have hundreds of officers, deputies, and to support our staff working every aspect of this emergency, along with air, water, canine, and other assets, conducting search and rescue. As of 1:30, we have recorded 68 deceased in Kirk County. Among those who are deceased, we have 40 adults and 28 children. 18 adults are pending identification, and 10 children are also pending identification. Once again, pending identification are 18 adults and 10 children. At present, there are 10 Camp Mystic campers unaccounted for and 1 counselor. We continue to offer our condolences to those affected, and we will work tirelessly till we reunite them with their families.
She stepped out for a story, but we talked to several people in this community who say they got no emergency alerts whatsoever. Governor Abbott, in his press release, just placed the responsibility onto local agencies. So I know you're focusing on victims right now, but yes or no, did local agencies send out any emergency alerts, flares, sirens of any kind?
No, I know you guys keep asking this question. We appreciate it. We think it's important. We don't want to speculate. At this time, we know there's a lot of speculation and question around it. Again, there's going to be a full review, of this so we can make sure that we focus on future preparedness. We want to continue to focus on the families at this time, and so we're getting through that. So thank you.
The young girls staying in the summer camp would have been sleeping in cabins situated in a low-lying area just 200 meters from the Guadalupe River before more than a foot of rain fell in a couple of hours. The river burst its banks in the early hours of Friday morning.
What the helicopter captures from afar, thousands faced up close. The force of the water ripped metal from bridges, so you can imagine its impact on people. Many were winched to safety, no doubt in shock, wondering if this was really happening to them. The flash flooding happened early morning on Friday. And whilst the lower water levels make searching physically safer, it's mentally grueling. At Camp Mystic, they're searching for the bodies of young girls. They would have been sleeping when the water started filling the cabin, barely time to run or swim. The waterline nearly reaches the ceiling.
The medical examiner's offices are working tirelessly, but the sheer volume of cases, combined with the difficulty of identification, means that this agonizing wait for answers will continue for many. The search continues, a race against time. The Texas landscape is transformed into an active disaster zone, with hundreds of emergency personnel, including swift water rescue teams, National Guard units, and volunteer groups, fanning out across the affected areas. Helicopters hover overhead, their powerful beams cutting through the lingering darkness, searching for any sign of life. Boats navigate treacherous currents, weaving through submerged debris fields where homes once stood. On the ground, search dogs trained to detect human remains are deployed, offering a glimmer of hope in the most desolate areas. The scale of the search is immense. Beyond the formal numbers, there's an unspoken fear that many more individuals, unregistered campers, spontaneous 4th of July revelers, or even those simply caught off guard while traversing rural roads, may be unaccounted for. Social media has become a critical tool for families posting desperate pleas, sharing photos of missing loved ones, and coordinating informal search parties. This organic, community-driven effort highlights the resilience and profound compassion of Texans, even as they grapple with their own losses and anxieties. However, the receding waters also reveal new challenges: treacherous mud, unstable ground, and the sheer volume of debris that must be meticulously searched. Every hour that passes diminishes the chances of finding survivors, making the urgency of these search efforts even more pronounced. Why Texas is Flash Flood Alley. Understanding the vulnerability. Texas, particularly the Hill Country region, has earned the moniker Flash Flood Alley for a reason. This geographically unique area is highly susceptible to rapid, catastrophic flooding due to a confluence of factors. Firstly, the region is characterized by steep limestone hills and valleys. When heavy rain falls on these slopes, the water rushes downhill at high speeds, gaining momentum and destructive power as it coalesces into narrow channels and riverbeds. Secondly, the soil in much of the hill country is thin and rocky, with a limited capacity to absorb large amounts of rainfall. This means that a significant portion of the water from a heavy storm quickly becomes surface runoff, overwhelming rivers and streams almost instantly. The rapid urbanization and development in some flood-prone areas also play a role. While the current tragedy is predominantly rural, increased impervious surfaces like concrete and asphalt in wider Texas contribute to runoff, channeling water even faster into natural waterways, exacerbating flood risks downstream. The bill comes due: economic fallout of the deluge. Beyond the immediate human toll, the floods in Texas are poised to inflict a significant economic impact, reverberating through various sectors of the state's economy. While precise figures are still being tallied, initial estimates suggest the 2025 Hill Country floods alone could cause over $10 billion in damages, adding to the already staggering cost of natural disasters in the state. Since 2020, tropical cyclones like Hurricane Beryl, July 2024, $7.2 billion in damages, and Hurricane Francine, September 2024, $1.3 billion, have consistently exposed the fragility of existing flood mitigation systems. The financial ramifications extend across multiple fronts. The insurance industry is on the front lines, bracing for a deluge of claims. Major property and casualty insurers with significant exposure to Texas are likely to face immense pressure, impacting quarterly earnings and potentially affecting their capital reserves. Beyond insurance, local industries and supply chains will be disrupted, leading to potential market volatility. Texas, as a major energy hub, could see disruptions in its refining capacity, potentially leading to temporary spikes in gasoline prices nationwide. Agricultural commodities, with Texas being a leading producer of cotton and cattle, will also face impacts. The extensive rebuilding efforts, however, may offer a silver lining for the construction and home improvement sectors, with increased demand for materials and labor. The long-term economic outlook is further complicated by the state of Texas's infrastructure. Over 500 dams in Texas require an estimated $1.5 billion in repairs, a fraction of the $54.5 billion needed to address regional flood plans, according to the Texas Water Development Board. The question of funding for these crucial infrastructure upgrades, especially with proposed reforms under Project 2025, potentially raising FEMA's damage thresholds and introducing state deductibles, looms large. This disaster serves as a stark reminder that underinvestment in climate resilience now leads to far greater costs in the future. The Congressional Budget Office estimates that every $1 spent on mitigation saves $6 in disaster recovery, a powerful economic incentive that demands attention. Beyond the headlines, the lingering trauma, the immediate aftermath of a flood brings scenes of dramatic rescues and heart-wrenching loss. But the true human cost extends far beyond the initial days. For those who survive, the psychological scars will run deep. The trauma of losing loved ones, witnessing homes swept away, and the sheer terror of the event will linger for years. Children, especially those from Camp Mystic, will carry the memories of this tragedy, requiring extensive psychological support and healing. Beyond the personal toll, there's the monumental challenge of rebuilding. Homes have been destroyed, livelihoods shattered, and the very infrastructure of affected communities compromised. Roads have washed out, bridges collapsed, and vital utilities disrupted. The economic impact will be substantial, requiring significant state and federal aid for recovery and reconstruction. This is not a sprint. It's a marathon that will test the resilience and determination of Texans for months, if not years, to come. The long-term recovery will involve not just physical rebuilding, but also addressing the emotional and mental health needs of a traumatized population. Lessons learned, the call for better preparedness. In the wake of every natural disaster, there's an inevitable and necessary call for lessons to be learned and for improved preparedness. The speed and severity of this Texas flood raised critical questions about warning systems and community readiness. While flash floods are inherently difficult to predict with pinpoint accuracy due to their rapid onset, questions will undoubtedly be asked about the effectiveness of existing alert systems, particularly in rural and recreational areas like the Hill Country. Should there be more robust early warning systems, perhaps leveraging cellular technology or specialized sirens, especially in areas known for their flash flood risk? Are emergency evacuation plans clearly communicated and practiced, particularly for institutions like summer camps? The role of local and state government in disseminating timely information and coordinating rapid response is paramount. Furthermore, there's a broader conversation to be had about land use planning and development in floodplains. While difficult to implement retrospectively, future development must consider the inherent risks of building in flash flood alley. Investing in resilient infrastructure, such as elevated homes or flood-resistant materials, and restoring natural floodplains can also play a crucial role in mitigating future damage. This disaster serves as a stark reminder that as climate patterns shift and extreme weather events become more frequent, proactive measures and continuous adaptation are not luxuries, but necessities for safeguarding lives and communities. The resilience of Texas will be tested in the coming months as it grapples with not only the immediate aftermath, but also the long-term implications of this devastating flood.
10 minutes drive away at a boys' camp, the same level of destruction and mayhem. The camp's Facebook page says all the children are accounted for.
All of the campers in those cabins had to go up on the rafters, and they had to wait there until they could swim out. And my brother here, he had to swim out of his cabin.
The flood started getting bigger, and it was going up to, we have bunk beds in our cabins, and it was going up to the top bunk, and we had one choice, and we had to swim out of our cabins.
Oh no, Granny.
Officials say a month's worth of rain fell in a matter of hours.
Oh my God.
The Guadalupe River did the only thing it could do. But surely the authorities had more options, residents are prompting.
No warnings at all. They came hours later, which was the most devastating part. You know, we got the warnings on our phones hours later. The destruction had already been done before the warnings came out.
The National Weather Service is responsible for issuing warnings. and the initial alert to be weather aware went out on Thursday afternoon. The service is stretched thin, though, with long-standing staffing concerns. In May, 5 former directors of the service published an open letter warning of potential consequences to Trump's funding cuts to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which works to understand and predict changes in climate and weather. Our worst nightmare, it said, is that weather forecast offices will be so understaffed that there'll be needless loss of life.
I don't know how much that was a factor in what happened in Texas this weekend. Pick your favorite football team, and now imagine that team has, instead of 11 players, has 8 players. They're going to lose. No matter how good they are, they can't do the job of the full team. And that's what's happening at NOAA. Is these are outstanding scientists, wonderful technicians, terrific policy folks, but if we don't have enough of them doing the job, then something falls off the table.
Donald Trump has announced a major disaster declaration for Kerr County, which will provide funds for emergency services as well as for individuals and public infrastructure. This time lapse shows just how quickly the river rose on Friday, swallowing the road and trees, just about anything in its path.
One of the hardest hit spots from the flooding, as Mike mentioned, is Camp Mystic. It's in Kerr County. Camp Mystic did not evacuate before the floods hit. Joining us now for tonight's big close-up is Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for being here. Tell me for a moment, I know we still have outstanding campers that are missing. Have the families been contacted yet? Have you turned up any of these girls? I know these families are frantic. In fact, I know one of them.
Yeah, Raymond, let me paint a quick picture for you. There are about 15 camps along the Guadalupe that we were checking yesterday when this all began. And Camp Mystic was the one where we were not able to account for everyone. And now that number is 27. There were 750 campers in just that camp alone. There were several thousand along the river. And the gentleman named Delton, who's the city manager in Kerrville, said he was out jogging at 3:30 in the morning and there wasn't a drop of rain and the river was normal. And by the time he showered and got dressed for the morning, suddenly the river rose, as Mike Tobin just said, about 26 to 30 feet in 45 minutes with the power of a freight train running through what was a dry creek, just a rapid pace, destroying everything in its way. So one of the things that Camp Mystic did yesterday is they had the phone numbers of everyone that was at their camp. And so they called those that were missing. They didn't try to call the 750 and say your daughters are safe. They called, which I thought was very smart, and they called the ones who are missing and said, we are searching for them. So we had a good idea very early of where we were. We surged 400 to 500 people in immediately. Helicopters, we had as many helicopters in the air as we could get safely with drones, because you get too many, you have another disaster in the air. The weather was overcast, even raining yesterday, part of the day, and they rescued, our brave swimmers rescued over 800 people yesterday, many of those by helicopter, but we still are missing 27.
God bless them.
Well, Lieutenant Governor, you have been in our prayers. Thank you for joining. It's always good to see you. Heavy rain on Friday morning caused the Guadalupe River to rise nearly 30 feet in 45 minutes. How wide is the search perimeter, and are enough resources being provided by the local, state, and federal government to assist in the search and rescue?
Yeah, Riley, we are prayer partners. So you know where my heart is, I know where your heart is, and everyone on the panel. This is the time you stand on your rock of faith. This is the time you're tested. We've surged now. There are close to 1,200 people working in shifts, doing everything possible. And the president has put his full weight of the federal government to give us help. Kristi Noem, I talked to her earlier this morning before she came into Kerrville. And so we've gotten all the support we want. We have the best emergency management team in the world, I believe. We have pre-positioned some assets there to help us, because we knew rain was coming, but you can never predict exactly where and what. It was over about 150-mile area the storm could have hit. And what happened at 5 o'clock in the morning or so yesterday was the worst possible storm in the worst possible place to the most vulnerable people, adults in campsites and trailers not knowing what hit them, and these girls in these camps. There's a boys camp, girls camp, co-ed camps, but it was Camp Mystic.